A-B block schedule, alternating days for the full first semester, and I believe possibly for the full first year. Thinking about that, I don't know that that decision has totally been made yet, but an A-B block schedule for that 90-minute time to, one, reduce the passing time, but two, this may be a level where it might be more difficult due to the number of course offerings that we have, and due to certification that we may not be able to have a teacher totally dedicated to that online. Again, it will depend on the number of students that we have. So students may have to remote in. So those who are fully online may have to remote into classes. And they may have a combination of sometimes having to remote in, and others. We'll know more once the after July 31st. Again, our buses most likely will run close to full capacity, depending again on the number of students who are coming on site and choose to use transportation services. We will ask them to wear face coverings while riding the bus, and I won't go into detail about the bus mitigation strategies. There's a link here that you can see, but what we're asking is students to fill when they come on the bus in the morning, fill from the back forward. When they are getting off the bus, to leave the bus from the front of the bus towards the back. We will also ask siblings to sit together. So thinking through how can we reduce, again, that interaction between our students on our buses. We also have different mitigation strategies for I'm going to open this up for in-person learning. So hopefully, again, I won't read all of these, but hopefully you've had a chance to see these. This was all posted on our board meeting agenda items. So we will have social distancing when possible. We know that it's not going to be possible in every instance, and so that's why we required the face coverings. Again, face coverings required. Employees will be required to complete a health self-assessment prior to start of their workday. We will also be asking our families to make sure that they are having their children have a self-assessment as well. We will incorporate hand washing and hygiene training, not only for our adults, for our students, and have regular breaks throughout the day, reduce that cohort intermingling, think about different strategies as far as cleaning and disinfecting throughout the day, so that schedule is enhanced compared to what's been done in the past. Our operations department has already been in the process of changing out water fountains so that they're bottle fillers. We've installed plexiglass at the secretaries' desks and any public-facing desk throughout the district. If it hasn't been installed, it will be, but I know that operations has been working on that. So there's quite a bit that has been put in place already. You know, after the board approved July 13th, it didn't mean that our work ended. It actually just means that there's a lot more work to be done. So building level teams, now it's really getting into those details about schedules and so forth. So building level return to learn implementation teams are planning and will be communicating information back to central office prior to the year starting, as well as to our families prior to students returning on August 26th. And again, I just want to remind everybody, so this is a decision that was made on July 13th by our Board of Education. All of our aspects of all of our plans, return to learn plans, are subject to change. I mean, subject to change based on cases, whether that's county, state, direction that comes from the state. So as new guidance continues to come, we continue to be, I continue to use the term nimble, flexible, because we may need to change at any moment. Even throughout the fall semester, we need to be prepared that there will be times that we are possibly needing either a building, maybe the full district to go fully online, could be a classroom. So it really depends on the situation. But we need to know that all plans are fluid at this time and will continue to be. So Lane, I think I will open it up to questions.
Great, thank you, Dr. Ramey. And just as a reminder, you can post your questions in the Q&A, and I will make every effort to get through as many as we can in the remaining time. We have about 15 minutes left. If we don't get to all of the questions, we will be downloading those and seeing how we can answer them online through our FAQ and/or sending out further communication to our staff. So one of the questions that is here relates to masks and shields, and we have indicated that they are required, but there is a question regarding how we're going to address if students are not wearing them. And so it's something that I will throw out to the leadership team to answer.
Well, I'll start, and then I'll be at this level, and then others can get more specific. One of the things that I've said to our administrative team is that the first thing is education. We need to educate all of our students on the why. Why are we requiring masks? So I think that needs to be the conversation first. You know, incorporate that into one of the first things that we're doing when school starts. So really helping people understand the why. And then the second thing is when we don't have a student, then pulling that student aside, having that conversation with the student. And once that conversation is had, also having a conversation with the parent. You know, again, saying to mom or dad, this is required, this is what we expect, here's why. And then if we continue to see that, I know that our administrators have had some conversations around some very specific steps to take, and that's where I'll let the details go from one of our more building level folks.
Sure, and I can jump in there. What we would normally do is we would follow this as we would any other situation that would be a progressive disciplinary process. So if the staff members have already been proactive, talked to the student, provided those resources, explained the why and the what, talk to the parent, reminding them that it was a choice to come to the online setting and these are the requirements for that setting. And it does move up to a building administrator, then it would move through our progressive disciplinary process where parents would be contacted, consequences would be provided, and if it continued and it ramped to the stage, there would be a conversation between the school and the parents as whether or not that face-to-face environment is appropriate for their child to continue staying in. It's a little bit different with this because it falls into some of our pre-existing disciplinary protocols that we already have in place, but the consequences for not following them are ramped up a little bit more because of the health and the medical concerns that are involved with it. So we would definitely be having some sooner rather than later conversations with parents and students as to whether or not the expectations for them being at school and wearing a protective face covering in any form or fashion, whether it's a shield, a mask, a gaiter, is the most appropriate. And if it's not, then we need to make some decisions about how to continue providing their educational opportunities and whether or not that face-to-face setting is the most appropriate for them and the environment that we expect them to live in.
Thank you, Dr. Libby. I'm going to actually do a follow-up question to you because it has to do with face shields, face masks again. So one of the questions is what the expectation is for teachers wearing a face shield and a mask, if that is appropriate in certain circumstances, or I know that there have been building administrator conversations over this. So Dr. Libby, if you wouldn't mind sharing a little bit more on that, that would be appreciated.
So if I understand the question correctly, it's whether or not staff can wear a face shield, a mask, or both?
The question was if there would be an expectation to wear both and when that might be.
I don't know if that one necessarily comes from me, if that's more of an HR question. I would suggest that if I was working with a student and it was literacy, or I was working with a student and we were doing some sort of reading or speech pieces, it may be more appropriate for the student to be able to see my face for those language aspects. I don't necessarily know if there is a one and or other for staff members as far as those requirements, or if it is just where have something that it puts you in a place when you are within that 6 feet that you are comfortable with and you have a capable of teaching and meeting the requirements of the instruction that you're giving. I would think if I was working with a student and I was a speech pathologist, I may want to be able to have them see me and see my face and my facial expressions because of the instruction that I was providing. So I think that's kind of open for discussion.
Dr. Libby, you did a great job. Thank you. The only thing that I would add is, in addition to times when we want to have opportunities for literacy development, and it's really important to see, for our students to see our faces, that a face shield really provides a mitigation strategy that can help that happen. The other piece is what we also know about social emotional learning, and looking at our faces and our expressions are really important when we're thinking about that. So that is why all of our employees are being provided a face shield. We certainly encourage employees to wear face coverings, whether that's a face mask or a gaiter as described. Those are just additional layers of mitigation strategies that would be able to support our employees. But we wanted to make sure that employees knew that we were providing face shields for all of our employees.
And can I piggyback off of that slightly while we're talking about instruction and facial mitigation strategies? I know that quite a few of our members have asked in regards to instructing with a mask on, with a face shield on, about access to microphones and other things to amplify our voices so that students are able to hear our instruction. And my understanding is that classroom teachers should be able to have access to that if you don't already have one in the classroom, to reach out to your administrator and your like technology specialist in your building to get access to that. So if you're wearing a mask and talking to a group or to a class, that your voice can be amplified, since we do know that the masks.
Thank you very much. A question was posted regarding the expectation for students wearing shields or masks, and I can answer briefly, but certainly post this out to others as well. At the elementary level, we are providing face shields, and there has been communication regarding areas in which a face covering, and we are using face covering, as Dr. Ramey explained, for certain aspects of the day at the elementary level, potentially out playing recess, that sort of thing. Where the secondary level, we at this point don't have a plan to provide face shields for the secondary students, but that they would be required to have a face covering. In either instance, if a student did not show up with a face covering, one would be provided to them that day. Regarding habitual lack of a face covering, again, it would be a matter of, is it a need, a resource that student needs? Is it something that is an active decision that's happening each day? And how can we talk to that student and or family member about that? But just wanted to clarify the difference between the face shields and the face coverings for students. If there's anyone else here as a panelist who would like to expand upon that, I'll open it up. Otherwise, just a moment, I'll go on to the next question. All right. Wanted to follow up with how we might handle if parents and students have signed up for one preference. If we know any data to date, and just as a reminder to those who are on the call, that we sent out an email yesterday to families where they will be asked by student whether or not they want to choose on-site or online for this first semester. And so there was a question that came in to say, even in the last, it's not even been 24 hours, do we have any information on that trend? And if Mike Sherman is on the call, he might be able to provide just some general information. Again, a reminder that we have until July 31st for all parents to submit this information to us.
I can share that the numbers we have so far this morning, with maybe a little over a quarter of families having responded, which is a really high turnout in such a short period of time. They pretty much matched the surveys that we would have shared earlier that were shared with the board. So percentages of students choosing online range around 20 to 25% of what we would have coming in next year or this year.
Thank you, Mike. And we will certainly be watching that trend and be communicating out what those final numbers are percentage-wise to staff and to families, to have them be aware of that prior to the beginning of the school year. We wanted to shift a little bit. Another question is related to special ed students and associates. So if Candy's on, or somebody from the TLS team, I'll just throw it out there. What are our plans for those one-on-one associates for special ed students?
I'll start, and then Carol, if you want to jump in. We do know that our students with one-on-one associates have very unique needs, and IEP teams will be having discussions with some very guided protocols through the web IEP system, as well as some additional supporting questions that helps identify what a one-on-one associate's role would be in a virtual setting. We know that will be different for individual students depending on their need.
So then to piggyback off what you just shared, Candy, and thank you for that. We do anticipate that there are ways that our one-on-one assistants are able to provide support for their student, their special education student, in whatever plan that we have. The way that that looks will likely be needing to be flexible, as we all will be when we are maneuvering between the three plans. But we do believe that that is a necessary support for our students with special needs. The IEP team had already made that decision that that is a necessary support, and so we want to make sure that that support is there in any of the three plans that we find ourselves in. The other piece that I'll want to just tag on is we know that there's going to be a need for our special education teachers in order to, again, meet with IEP teams and possibly amend IEPs depending on where we find ourselves. And there's been a collaboration with our association in order to create opportunity for up to additional hours for our special education teachers to make sure that that can happen so that they can meet with our families, with their IEP teams, in order to document what that looks like for each of the three plans.
Thank you both for providing feedback on that. We've had several questions come in regarding the face shields and cleaning and what the expectation is for teachers to clean. I'm going to actually reach out to Christine Maduro, Director of Operations, as she can address a little bit more about the cleaning supplies that are to be provided. And then if anybody else within the panelists wants to discuss protocol or anything else related to frequency of cleaning, but I'm going to first start with Christine.
Sure. So we're still going to be doing our primary classroom cleaning on second shift as it is now, but on third shift, we're providing our sanitation. So all the spaces, including the classrooms, will be sanitized on third shift. During the school day, inside the doors of the classroom, we're trying to keep as many of the personnel socially distant as we can. So we're asking for some help with touch points in the classrooms from teachers, as well as with sanitizing the face masks. The actual process has not been completely worked out yet. We know the chemicals that we have available, and we're trying to come up with the easiest and best plan for all of us to get that done every day.
I can add to that. I know that Christine has been working hard to make sure that The chemicals for disinfecting and sanitizing are EPA approved. They're green, and we are looking for additional solutions that would allow for a very minimal time frame. It's as quickly as, and correct me if I'm wrong here, Christine, as a quick spray, and then within 30 seconds we can wipe, and that is all that's needed for the disinfecting.
That's correct. We're trying to get a faster labeled disinfectant. I'll say it that way, because the disinfectant we have is labeled for a fairly long dwell time, but for coronavirus, it's extremely short. It's just not labeled that way. So we're looking to find a chemical that fits our needs better.
Thank you very much, both of you, for answering. A couple of questions have come in related to how online teachers will be selected, whether at the elementary or the secondary level. The specific one that I'm reading is asking about elementary. So for example, if there is a 3-section building and a third of those families choose online, how would that be impacted, or would it be impacted across buildings? If Carol, you'd like to just speak to that generally, that would be helpful.
Sure. So it is really important for our families to let us know by July 31st, because if we find that across our system we have need for a section, let's say, of online, then we would be making adjustments to our staff. We would be looking at those staff who are interested and have expressed interest in being an online teacher. We would look at staff members who have already shared risk factors that they have documented by their healthcare professional. So this could be a possibility for an accommodation in some situations. We would then, our last case scenario is that we would be looking to reassign teachers if we still find a need for that for our online. But those are the ways that we would be looking, and we would be looking across our system to make sure that we still have equitable class sizes throughout our system.
And just to clarify on that, Carol, because I know it's a question that will come up, once we have clearer numbers, you will be reaching out to staff who may not have had an opportunity or not seen the opportunity to voice that they'd be interested in online instruction, correct?
Correct. And if there are individuals, there have already been individuals who have reached out. And so if there are folks who are on this meeting now and they have that desire and they have not reached out, I would welcome that email, and please let your building administrator know of your choice as well, your preference. I don't know that we would be able to grant all of those. That's, again, the numbers, and this after July 31st will be imperative for us to really be able to assign appropriately.
Thank you for those answers. There have been a couple more questions coming in regarding just how can we help provide guidance on setting up classrooms, and some clarification on potentially the physical distancing requirements. Is there a do's and don'ts list, or how are building administrators working through that process? So I'm going to put that out to Dr. Libby to maybe lead the discussion, and if there are other building administrators here on this call who may want to discuss how that's being done, that is fine as well.
I apologize. I was typing a response to a question. Could you read that one again?
Sure. So the question was, do we have any do's or don'ts related to how classrooms should be set up, or what are some of those guidelines around physical distancing? I know that we've had several meetings with building administrators just talking through how to manage this, and there may be some confusion as to what that expectation is for physical distancing with students in combination with the face covering requirement.
Yeah, that's a great question, and actually one of the things that's kind of what I was typing a response to. Depending on what the numbers are and how the survey comes back will kind of give us some numbers as to what your class size should look like. So there's a question that was being responded to is about a 30 by 30 classroom that has 20 plus students in it, how do you safely social distance in there? So the objective would be is to try to keep students as far apart as you possibly can, but the purposes of wearing a face shield or a face covering is because we know we're within those six feet distance. So having an understanding that you may have students sitting at a shared table, but maybe they're kitty corner from each other, or there's two on one side and a third on the other. Those are potential opportunities for moving. We've also had conversations with building administrators who have reached out to facilities around those small group tables that are being used, and whether or not plexiglass barriers can be put into place so that we can have some separators. I do know that some of the buildings have talked about the plexiglass X's that you could put on there to separate tables into foursomes, so that there would be a way to keep 4 kids at a table or at a shared spot. Again, the recognition is that the purpose behind a face covering or the shield is because we recognize that students will be within that 6 feet, and it may not be capable of keeping kids 6 feet or further apart in a 30 by 30 setting. I do know administrators have been walking buildings and looking in classrooms to see if there are ways that unneeded furniture or pieces could be removed from classrooms to provide some more space to separate and pull seating further apart.
I would just want to add, Dr. Libby, I would give kudos to our administrators. We have a list that is ever growing of reopening considerations, and these are the kinds of things that our administrators and our leadership teams are working through in the unique context of each building. So I really give kudos to the work that has been done already and continues to be done, as well as the feedback and insight that we're getting from our teachers and our staff members. So thanks to all of you.
Thank you both for providing feedback on that. There are a couple of questions related to protocol if a staff member gets COVID. So what the quarantine expectation is, and I'm going to put this back with Dr. Seid to provide some feedback on how we will be working with local health officials on any case that could come in, whether staff related or student.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. I appreciate that, Lane. So we have been working closely with Polk County Health Department, with our nursing supervisor, with our school nurses, with our blank organization, in order to make sure that we have protocols in place that are compliant with our OSHA requirements, the guidance that we've received. We would make sure to work with our health department and receive recommendations from them in that kind of a situation, so that we can determine appropriately what level of closure and disinfecting needs to happen. And we know that that is going to be a temporary situation, and so how temporary would be in alignment with the health department as well. As our Department of Education, we're learning even more about that since our recent governor's proclamation. So we would continue to follow the guidance that we're given there. We would provide notification to anyone who has been exposed. We have been doing that. Actually, we have been even more diligent than what our health department sometimes has indicated we needed to do. So we wanted to make sure that people were aware of the potential for an exposure, even beyond the requirements and the recommendations that we've been given. So we would continue to provide that notification to those individuals who have been exposed as well, and provide the current guidance. We know that our CDC guidance is changed just as recently as the 17th of July. And so we are continuing to make sure that the information that we are providing is the most current. And I appreciate the nursing staff and their work collaboratively with us on this.
Thank you, Dr. Seid. A question came in regarding elementary recess and use of equipment, and I would not just probably recess balls, but the actual playground equipment, and cleaning of that, or what that expectation is. So I'm going to put that out there for the either Lee or elementary administrators to share some information on that.
Thanks, Lane. So as we've been planning for elementary recess, we've talked about the idea of having cohorts be zoned together on the playground, and also that classrooms would have class sets of recess items like balls, jump ropes, so we could reduce the amount of shared materials between cohorts of groups. We also have been talking through ways that we could potentially address the playground equipment and how we might keep that sanitized between groups. Those larger pieces of equipment are ongoing discussions. I don't know if Tamara or Paul want to add anything.
Thank you, Lee. You did a great job. The only thing that I would like to add is that we also talked about in the document that Dr. Syed referred to as the reopening considerations. One of the things that we decided to do is make sure that we teach the process of washing hands, sanitizing hands before they go outside. And then immediately when they come back in, they're also going to do the same thing. So that way, again, we really make sure that we honor that whole sanitizing process.
Thank you both for providing feedback to that question. There is a question related to the possibility of us all going online at some point, just due to circumstances outside of our control. If there was a spike in COVID-related cases and we were mandated similar to last spring, potentially, where district-wide we would be learning online. So the question is, what training is planned so teachers feel comfortable with online expectations and the use of Canvas? And just as a reminder that Canvas would be used at the elementary and secondary level as a resource expanded. So I'm going to throw this out to the TLS team to provide some feedback on this question.
Lane, I can start from an elementary perspective. Next week, we will be sharing out our blueprint template that all elementary teachers, classroom teachers will have access to. Along with that, we will have a kind of a screencast that will provide some additional information about how to best utilize that tool. And then in our pre-service days, we have already planned for grade level time to explore that blueprint template and really talk through the best ways to use it moving forward for all grade levels. And then additionally, we have the Teaching and Learning Hub for elementary teachers to access that has some great resources that you could tap into now around how to best use Canvas and other pieces of technology.
Thank you, Lee.
I would just add a shout out to Carrie and Abby, our online learning coordinators, who, as of yesterday, were emailing to me, asking lots of questions, wanting to continue to support. And I also want to send a shout out to all of our teachers who engaged in all of the webinars throughout all of June, and all of the courses that are continuing this summer, just to continue to build our capacity around how to teach online learning. I don't think any of us are perfect at it, but I appreciate that we're getting better. When we think about opportunities to engage with students, one of the things I've talked to lots of parents, that opportunity to make those connections with a teacher, even if it's a short window of time and then it's a small group, to get that feedback this way is just a really simple strategy, but one that's really powerful and effective. I don't know, Shannon, if you have anything you want to add, but we will continue to support in any way that we can in teaching and learning with that online delivery and best meeting the needs of all of our students. And I also want to say that we're really blessed to have some amazing teacher leaders who I know are willing to jump in alongside anyone that needs that support.
The only things that I would add, Michelle, and to what Lee had shared, was that the training that was made available to the staff in June is available through a SMORE link. Your building administrators have that. We'll be sure to share that out, especially after today, as some of you might be hearing it and want to re-access that learning or access it for the first time. There's a wealth of tips and opportunities on how to design and develop your course, everything from how to communicate at the top of your Canvas page on a regular basis so that there can be some consistent experiences and expectations for students, and then how to design a learning environment in which you can incorporate some relationship building opportunities, address social emotional needs of students. And some of the administrators have been practicing some of those experiences in some of our Java-like meetings. So we're all training just maybe a step ahead of you.
Thank you all for that input. This question is for Christine regarding the ventilation in buildings, and have there been any changes based on COVID, or how can you reassure our staff that the ventilation is doing the very best that it can to help protect our students and staff in the building?
Yep, so this has been something that we've actually been working on since the whole situation started, since we had some opportunities to do some additional maintenance, some inspections of our equipment to make sure that they were all functioning the way they were designed to do, because all of our systems were designed for optimal air exchanges. Anything that's been upgraded or replaced within the last 5 to 10 years actually uses CO2 sensors to determine how many people are in the space and how many air exchanges are required. But there is a minimum that every system is engineered during occupied times to provide to the space. So we've been doing our PMs, we've been changing belts, making sure all the units are working the way they're supposed to. We also, on our last round of PMs, upgraded our filter media. So normally we use a MERV 8, which is a pretty standard filtration for commercial settings. And we've upgraded that to a MERV 1314, which provides a viral filtration to those air handling units. We've also locked down our scheduling so that we make sure that we have optimum function during occupied times in the building.
Thank you, Christine. The conversation of locker use has been ongoing, and in the most recent communication, we indicated that lockers would not be used at the secondary level and would be limited at the elementary level. So if there's somebody at either one of those levels that wants to just explain what will that look like for students carrying supplies, if there's any current concerns or questions around that you've addressed already, but just to provide feedback again to staff about because we won't be having lockers, what does that look like for our students and teachers to support?
So I can jump in here and answer a little bit. This has been a continuing conversation, and that ball keeps bouncing back and forth between courts as to whether or not lockers are going to be used or lockers aren't going to be used based on new guidance and directions of our daily conversations. I think overall, what we're looking at the secondary level is again around that social distancing, and then making sure that if we have face-to-face instruction, that if students go to a virtual setting because of an issue that arises or we shut down over the weekend, that they have the materials that they need before they go. I do know in some instances, lockers may be assigned to students because they can do that in the system, but they may not use them at the beginning of the school year. So that students are assigned, but they're just not shared out for that use, to see how, particularly in some of the buildings, how the backpacks work, how the movement of the building works, where are things being stored. We've also had conversation that as we start getting closer into winter weather, what do you do with boots, jackets, and all the rest of that material? And if we have to use lockers, is there an expectation that those lockers are empty at the end of each day, or are those lockers empty at the end of each week so that they can be sprayed and cleaned? Again, we're all still learning, and we're all trying to do our best. I do know that this conversation continues to grow and move, trying to meet the best interest of health and safety and students and keeping classrooms uncluttered. Shane, did I miss anything, Dr. Christensen?
Thank you, Dr. Libby.
Yeah, I think you got it. Thank you.
Question about substitute pool. So I'm going to ask Dr. Seid to address this. There is a worry that we may not have enough subs, and what we're doing to help support that.
Yes, thank you very much. I appreciate this. And it is, as we all know, substitutes, a substitute pool has been a challenge, even in the best of situations. There is good news. We have pulled all of our substitutes in our system, and we continue to find that as they respond to the question of if they are willing to come back and substitute for us, 75% of our substitutes are indicating that they will be available for us. In addition to that, that was an aspect of the most recent governor's press conference and her proclamation. One aspect of that was to expand the ability for us to obtain substitutes. So we will certainly be looking at that. We also want to make sure that we provide information and opportunities for our substitutes to learn when we're thinking about the learning that our teachers and our staff are doing to be able to be nimble throughout any of these 3 plans. Our substitutes need to be able to have that opportunity for learning as well. So we're working on providing that for our substitutes. And if any of you know of individuals, I think I shared this in the board meeting or the workshop as well. If you know of individuals that you feel would be great to be able to work with our students in some capacity as an assistant, as any sort of a substitute, please make sure and share our information with them. Ask them to complete an online application so that we can get that process rolling just as soon as possible. So thank you.
Dr. Seid, if I may just add to that. So just as recent as of sometime over the weekend, right, conversation, looking at the possibility of having some contracted subs for the district as well. So, and what I mean by contracted subs is hiring full-time staff that's what they would do and support us in that sub-need area. So that is fresh information and just something that we are talking about and going to move forward here fairly quickly.
Thank you both for that update regarding subs. This is a question regarding 6th grade classrooms and if we will be moving to having those self-contained for this school year. Is that something a member of the TLS team might be able to answer?
Yes, if that's a question about departmentalizing, for this school year, we are moving forward with not departmentalizing at 5th and 6th grade in an effort to keep our cohorts together. Also thinking through that online instruction and how we would best support our students, we decided that it would be really to have classrooms staying together. We have talked through ways in online instruction and even face-to-face how teams can support each other with maybe having a lead teacher sharing videos with the rest of the team. But yep, that would be our decision moving forward this year.
Thank you, Lee. And I have another quick follow-up question for you as well regarding music. I know we have just recently gotten some guidance on that. So just how we might be handling music. And I think we can probably have this be a bucket question of band and choir or singing and just some of the guidance that might be provided as to whether or not we're having it and in what form.
Yep, I also noticed in the questions that there were lots of questions around related arts, and would related arts teachers be going to the classroom or would students be traveling to related arts? And as of now, we've made the decision that students would be moving to the related arts teachers. So in most cases, I know that Tamara mentioned there may be a few specials teachers who go into the classrooms, but in most cases, we would have our students go to the related arts. We also have talked about the schedule and how those related arts sessions may be shorter to allow for disinfecting and cleaning between the sessions. As related to music, The guidance from the Iowa Music Association came out last week. And so we are still problem solving and considering the best ways to support band, orchestra, and singing in the classroom. So we'll continue to plan for those areas moving forward.
Thank you, Lee. This is a question regarding the custodial staff, and it mentioned that the third shift would be responsible for that nightly sanitation. Just wanting to make sure that we have the resources in place, as that is a lot to undertake in general, and with the additional cleaning and sanitizing that will need to be done. If Christine can just address it, will it be an increase in staff? How will that be supported?
Sure, I should have made that clear. So most of these additional sanitation duties, we're actually contracting those out. That way we know that we have manpower, chemical equipment to make sure that that gets done on a daily basis. Otherwise, we're subject to the same fluctuations that COVID can cause in any workforce. So that's why we've decided to contract those services, so we can be sure every day our buildings are as safe and clean as they can be.
Thank you.
In addition, I would want to say that I know that our operations supervisors are looking at interviewing for open positions that we also have. So in addition to the contractor, that we are looking at our own custodial force to make sure that we have folks available there.
Thank you. There's a question regarding how we are obtaining the feedback from families related to the survey. So we're not asking that we understand some families may not have email, or how are we addressing that? And I can answer briefly and then let Natalie jump in. We do have the survey translated into multiple languages, and so that is one important step. So it's not just going out into English, but based on primary language selected through Infinite Campus, we were able to filter and send that information out. Again, this is sent to those who are listed as the primary parent or guardian. So if there is a secondary member of that family that's not listed, they would not have received that email. And that, again, is to prevent duplication, similar to our enrollment process, where the primary parent or guardian would be the one going into Infinite Campus each summer and updating information. We also plan, I believe, to work at the building level along with our bilingual family liaisons to reach out to families who have not responded. And we are, in addition, providing some documentation and conversation at all of our on-site enrollment dates, which are happening right now. We have one at Indian Hills today. We've had a couple last week, but we'll continue to have several in the next few weeks. And so our goal is to try and be very proactive in reaching out to those groups who may not be responding, either because they don't have email or there might be a language barrier. And I'll let Carol or Natalie jump in if there's something that I have missed regarding how we might be reaching those families.
Thanks, Lane. I think you summarized that nicely. I was actually typing a response to a similar question as you brought that up, but working on leveraging and connecting with our intercultural outreach coordinator or our bilingual family liaisons, trying to provide some opportunities for families for two-way conversation at our online enrollment events, so that if they have questions or need more information, we can clarify. We've got on the website, there were some visuals and information that our school community relations department created, and we've had those translated in our top 4 languages as well. So we will have those available for families. But I think a benefit of the way the survey was delivered is that we need a response from every student, and it's attached to that district ID. So as we start to get results in, we can think about how we are reaching out to and contacting families we have not yet heard from. Utilizing our interpreters, our family liaisons, and other people.
I would actually shift. I know that in accordance with time, we want to make sure and honor the time that our employees have already given, and many of those employees are outside of their workday. Some are within the workday, so we want to make sure and honor the time that they've been able to give us so that we can share information. One thing that I would just want to reiterate is that we understand the situation that we all find ourselves in, and it's something that we none of us have ever dealt with, certainly in this way. And so it feels messy because it is messy. And I want to make sure that everyone who is on this meeting understands that we are all extremely concerned about the health and safety of each one of our staff members. And we want to make sure that we've got safe situations for all of our employees, and we are willing to be able to work together in order to provide that in a way that still allows our system and our organization to function and serve its purpose, which is to make sure to provide high quality, rigorous education experiences for all of our learners. So I'll stop there. Thanks.
Thank you, Dr. Seid. We are a little bit after 10:30. Just as a reminder, we will be downloading this video and posting it online. We'll be sending a link out to staff for those who either want to watch this or share it with other staff members who were unable to watch this Q&A today. We will also be downloading the list of questions that we were unable to address, and we'll be doing our very best to get answers out on our FAQ page or through another communication tool. The School Community Relations Department will continue to send updates to families and staff each week, and those typically come out on Friday, but depending upon the time sensitivity of the communication, we may send something out earlier. So thank you very much for coming on today. We had over 700 that were online watching, and we appreciate you taking time out of your day to just learn more about our Return to Learn, and we look forward to seeing you this fall. Dr. Ramey, do you have anything else that you'd like to share?
I do, thanks. I too want to just reiterate what Carol said, of utmost importance to us is health and safety of students and staff. I can't really express how challenging of a time it's been since March for every one of us. And I totally understand the anxiety that some of you have for our return. I just want you to know we understand, we're thinking about you. Please provide us grace as we will provide you grace throughout this time. And we do know that it's important for us to go to great lengths to provide that healthy and safe environment for everyone. Includes from myself all the way in through our organization. It's really important to us, but I also know it's really important for us to get kiddos back in the buildings for learning and to support kiddos in their learning and to support our families as well. So thank you, thank you, thank you, and thanks for spending your time with us this morning. Really appreciate it.
Thanks again, and I hope that you all are staying healthy and safe, and we will again continue to communicate updates in the coming days.